Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Greenwood. I'm with Analytics 8, and today we will be talking about mastering data governance. Analytics 8 has been around for over 18 years. We have over 700 customers. We're a data and analytic company. We focus on data strategy, data management, analytics, and data governance. I'm excited to be here to talk with you today. My background is in data governance, so I've spent the last 20 plus years working in data and analytics with a kind of a hyper focus on governance in the last 10, 15 years. I've worked both in industry and I've worked as a consultant. I've worked directly for Microsoft and some of the larger organizations, and I've also worked for some smaller firms. Some of the discussion points I want to hit on today are, where is data governance today and where should it be? So I have kind of a strong point of view on that, and it might be a little bit controversial. So I'm going to be interested to get some of your feedback on where I'm headed with governance going forward here. But we're also going to talk about how heavy duty does data governance need to be? Like, what do we need to do this big bang approach? Are there other ways to do it? I'll cover that. I'll cover how to operationalize things at scale, and then always have to cover how are we going to measure and demonstrate the value of our investment in data governance. I'm going to touch on AI and data governance in the US at the federal level. So where is data governance today? So historically, data governance, the academics, even myself, have approached data governance as kind of a boil the ocean, big bang approach. The suggestion is that you need enterprise data governance, and that to enable enterprise data governance, you need your entire organization involved. And that would include all, depending on the makeup of your company, that would involve all of the different operational areas. So marketing, finance, sales, everybody needs to be doing governance. Everyone needs to consistently, know what they should be doing with governance, and we should have this program management approach. I do not disagree with that. I, in fact, think that's the right way to approach governance in the event that you have the things in place that are necessary to achieve that type of North Star data governance program initiative. In lieu of that, though, I think we have to have alternatives. And I think that's something we've lacked in the past. And that's something that I really, when I joined Analytics 8, it was bothering me. And so I was able to kind of take a step back and talk to my peers and talk to my colleagues about, what have we seen working and what is not working, and what do we need to do differently? Because most orgs today, at least in the US, are on a maturity scale of 1 to 5. They're between a 1 and a 2. And when I think of like a 1 and a 2, I think siloed governance, maybe it's happening in IT. But to me, a 2.5 to a 3 is where we should be, where every organization should be. And that's moving towards an enterprise approach. That's where you have multiple business units adopting and using data governance as part of their day-to-day. But we're not there. And I think that's a big problem. Because the amount of data that we're consuming and ingesting and transforming and disposing of or archiving, that's getting bigger and bigger every day. And companies are still stuck in that 1 or 2. They're not where they need to be to really, truly be managing that mass amount of data effectively. I think some of this, I don't know if it's largely due per se, but I think some of this is because of the typical academic approach that we've been trying to follow for years, myself included, where we want enterprise data governance, we believe in it, and we feel like companies need to make that investment. I still feel that way. I still feel like companies need to be doing that, but they are not. And they are getting sick of talking about governance and not doing governance. So I cannot tell you how many times I've come into an organization and they've said, I was kind of forced to hire you. I need to come up with a data governance program. Can we just check the box, because it's not going to work, and we've done this like 5 times. So I just make my leader happy. They've given me some budget, and then you can just go away and that'll be great. And I cannot tell you how frustrating that is. That is just what a non-starter, right? So I don't want that to continue happening. It's not a good use of a company's money. It's not a good use of my time, and frankly, it's demotivating. So what can we do differently? If the ideal state is still to have enterprise data governance, and that will not change, that is still my point of view, that's pretty much everyone's point of view. Is there a way to get there that would be more effective than trying to come in and engage the entire org and try to enable this huge program that maybe you're just not ready for? And the answer is yes, there is a way. And I'm about to contradict myself because I have repeatedly in the past said that grassroots initiatives and IT-led programs are not ideal, and that they typically or can fail. And that's not true. That actually is also the case in some situations. But I think that's more about the way that we were considering them. Instead of considering those grassroots initiatives or IT programs, those siloed data governance initiatives, as something we could build upon, we were just kind of saying, well, it's just not the right approach at all. So just stop it. And we're going to come in and we're going to just look bigger picture, and we're going to talk to everybody, and we're going to onboard everybody, and we're going to have this great thing. And well, that didn't work either. So there's got to be this middle ground. And I think the middle ground is iterative. Let's use what we have, what's working in that department or that line of business or within IT, and let's think about how it's working for the org, or how it could work for the org at a higher level. And let's use that as a launching pad to get the rest of the org on board and iterate. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. You can start with a single use case within a line of business. You can start with a couple of use cases, but the intent is just do something. You know, in lieu of being able to do the big, boil the ocean, big bang approach, do something. Now, with that being said, I want to be crystal clear. In the event that your company or a company you're working with has secured what I call the big three: C-suite sponsorship, a multi-year budget, not single year, multi-year budget. So addressing the elephant in the room, this is going to cost money. And that company has a strong change management strategy or methodology that they're confident will work to move the whole organization where they need to go with governance, then by all means, we are full steam ahead with an enterprise program, because we can do that, because we have the three things that we need secured to be successful. In lieu of having any one of those three things, the odds are against you. You are probably going to have a start and stop. So I know that's maybe a little bit controversial, but I think it's the reality. If someone from the C-suite is sponsoring this program and they have the 2-year budget, but there's no change management to support it, it's probably not going to work, because this is a major change to how we do business and how we're thinking about our business and our data. And so it requires change management. If you have change management and you have a budget, but your C-suite sponsor has left the company or been demoted, well, now you don't have that top-down approach. So you don't have someone from the top saying it's important, it's a strategic objective. You don't have anyone truly driving it that has the political capital to keep this program going. So it's probably going to fail. And back to the elephant in the room. This is going to cost money. There's nothing in business that we do that doesn't cost money. And I'm tired of even saying it myself. It's not true. You are going to spend money on governance. It might be a tool. It might be adding headcount. It might be changing the way someone works, but it's going to cost something. So there's cycles involved in doing it. It's not a one-year thing. It's a multi-year thing. It's an ongoing forever thing. It's governance. And so you got to have money. So if you run out of a budget after a year, but you still have a C-suite that really wants to do it, and you have some change management, without money, you're going to be limited in what you can continue to do. Because by the time you get to that next year, you're probably thinking technology, or your program management team is probably ready for some type of data governance technology to support the larger initiative. And if you don't have budget, then what are they going to do? They can continue to refine processes, refine some methodologies, update policies, all great stuff. Don't stop doing that. But you are starting to lose that momentum of having that enterprise program. So that's why I really feel strongly that, again, if you have the three, let's go. If you do not, let's think about this differently, and let's take advantage of what is already working in your organization, or a line of business that just gets it and wants to do it, and they're ready to do it, and they just need someone to kind of help them get started. Well, let's help them. Let's get started, and then let's build that case. Let's help them build that business case to identify the big three so that they can slowly start to get the rest of the org enabled. Okay, so let's just pretend all those things work that I just said. And now you have a willing party, and you're going to enable governance, whether it be in a single line of business within IT, or you're going to do something big bang approach. I don't care what approach you use, you need to measure if it's effective and if it's working. And so that's where the key performance indicators come in. And it's hard to talk about. It's one of those things I can spend probably 2 to 3 hours on a call with a business unit. And we after maybe a couple hours, we're starting to really start thinking more quantitative, because it's really natural to say, well, I'm just going to reduce operational inefficiencies. Things are just going to be easier because I've implemented a catalog. Okay, but how do you take that back to your leader and say, well, things are just better. Trust me, like that doesn't work. So we need quantifiable. We need metrics that we can actually put in front of, on a dashboard, in an analytic dashboard, in front of our leadership and say, hey, look what we did. And it's either working or it's not. Now, the beauty of having those metrics and being able to actually show the effectiveness of your program is, in the event it's not working, you have something and you can pivot. So you're not necessarily in the scenario where you've got this huge thing that's costing millions of dollars and it's not working and you're measuring it and you're like, it's more like, we expected by implementing this tool, this to happen. These are the numbers. It's not quite getting us the lift we want. We need to pivot our approach. It doesn't mean you have to get rid of the technology. It maybe just means you need to adjust a few levers. Adjust the levers and keep moving. So again, it's not only a way to showcase to leadership that you're either doing or not doing what you told them you were going to do, or that you're successful or not, but it's a little bit of holding yourself accountable to the process and methodology of what governance is, which is having that willingness to change as needed. So KPIs are a big topic. I'm actually hoping some of you ask me some questions around KPIs, because I have some great ideas on how to get to those quantifiable measures. Okay, I'm going to touch on AI very quickly because, candidly, I haven't done too much of a deep dive myself in AI. I know that a lot of technology companies are starting to use it, Informatica included. Powerful. It's something that we have to think about. There is absolutely no way to govern data without thinking about AI and its implication on the organization, the people within the company, your staff, and the external, your customers, or the people that you're servicing. So we do need to start being more thoughtful about this. It needs to be baked into some of our methodologies and our frameworks. I like to use the example of ChatGPT. When people ask me, what do you do for a living? I like to give the example of, well, let's think about this. So there's this new thing that's out there, and it's ChatGPT. And any one of our employees could be using it. Any one of our customers could be using it. They could be doing anything with it, but should they be? That's where governance comes in. So from a company perspective, we need to be asking our company, what is acceptable use of ChatGPT? What is acceptable use of some of these AI technologies? And what is our point of view on that? And get it down on paper, make it a policy. So there is some language that we need to start drafting and thinking about in terms of what makes sense. And if nothing else, just start with your point of view of what's acceptable and what's not. And from there, we can build upon those policies. But I think at minimum, we need to be thinking about, what are we going to allow? Think about it this way. If you're working with a higher ed and you're working with a college, or even lower ed with the elementary or middle or high schools here in the US, they have started to publish rules around what they're going to consider acceptable use of ChatGPT. In other words, they'll consider it plagiarism in some cases. And that's something that you would be reprimanded for. So just as higher ed and lower ed is starting to think about it in the US, we also at a company level need to start considering that. And that is governance. So on that topic, let's talk about US federal laws. There are several federal laws in the US that are related to governance. Two that are most talked about are HIPAA. So that's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which is COPPA. These laws are designed to protect the privacy and security of personal information specifically, and they do impose pretty rigorous requirements on organizations that handle that type of data. So for example, they may require an organization to obtain consent before collecting or using personal information, or they may implement certain security measures to protect that data. And something that's happened to me recently is they are required to notify individuals if there's a data breach. So recently, someone decided that they were going to impersonate me, and they were using my social number, and a credit bureau, we have 3 of them in the US, one of them notified me via snail mail to let me know you may have been, your data may have been breached. So they do have those type of laws in place, or I should say we do in the US. The General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR out of Europe, it was not adopted by the US, but some US companies are subject to GDPR if they offer goods or services to individuals in the EU, or if they monitor the behavior of individuals in the EU. So we do have some caveats there. In those scenarios, US companies must comply with GDPR requirements, or they can face significant fines and penalties. So we are definitely, this is top of mind. This is something that we're looking at. It's most of our frameworks around data governance in the US, at least the framework that I leverage, does include an entire competency and several markers around data security and privacy. And we're thinking about and looking at some of these federal laws. But in addition to the federal laws, we are now starting to track the US state laws. So some US states, such as California, you can see here in the green, have signed into law and implemented their own data privacy laws that are very GDPR-like. So this has been interesting for the governance community, because if you go to iapp.org, where this image came from, there's tons of legislation out there. Some of it's still being written, some of it's been passed. But regardless, if it's out there, we have to be aware of it and we need to be accounting for it. And that's governing that data in the way that these laws require it. So if you're a company in Texas and you now are starting to move forward to get a bill signed, we need to look at those. We need to understand the details behind them. We need to make sure our companies are ready for them, that they're coding their applications and their programs correctly so that we're addressing them. I mean, it's a state by state scenario now. So we're kind of like, we took it from the federal level right into the state, and everyone's kind of got their own approach to doing this. So it's going to get very interesting in this space for the US from a governance perspective very quickly. And I think a lot of companies are starting to realize that. And that's one of the reasons they reach out to us is, you know, can you support us on understanding where our gaps are and how would we close those gaps, and so that we're sure that we're following the letter of the law. So final note. And I hope I say Laura's last name correctly, but Laura Madsen authored the book, Disrupting Data Governance, A Call to Action. And I love her quote for various reasons. My son's a pilot and she mentions airplane wings, and I'm from Florida and she alludes to palm trees. So I think this is great, but I'm going to read it to you because I want you to really think about what she's saying here. And additionally, I want to put a plug in. I think it's a great book. It's a quick read, and it's certainly aligned with this iterative approach to governance that I've been talking about today. So I will quote Laura: "The velocity in which organizations have to review, consider, and shift means that we have to stay fluid and dynamic in our approach. Rigidity, hard word to say, rigidity, in approach leads to critical failures. That's why airplane wings can flex and palm trees can withstand hurricane force winds." So with that, I will leave you with that final message. I hope you enjoyed this today. I'm so looking forward to hearing from all of you. If you want to reach me directly, feel free to email me at ngreenwood@analytics8.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Cheers.